Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Copilot Compass, where each week we'll take a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot. As always, I have the pleasure of being joined by my esteemed colleague, fellow Copilot enthusiast, and our resident smart guy, Logan.
Thanks, Grant. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And Logan, why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about what they can expect from this week's episode?
Yeah, so as always, we'll get started with our question of the week, and then we're going to get into our topic, which is building a Copilot agent, which is super cool. I've had a lot of fun preparing for this episode. A lot of interesting stuff there, so I'm excited to get into it. And yeah, we'll close out with a sneak peek of what we have coming up. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Awesome. Yeah. And before we start too, we'll just point out that this is really, well, we're going to call this like an agent for dummies. This is like your everyday user, no code type of experience. And I think, when we first got exposed to Copilot, I guess, boy, date ourselves here a little bit, but now over a year ago,
Yeah.
when I was hearing about agents, I just had always assumed this wasn't going to be something that I was going to be dealing with, like as far as deploying them, like maybe sending some business requirements to our IT departments or, some of the more tech savvy folks in the organization. But, with some of these new releases and announcements coming from Microsoft, this is, accessible to folks like us. So, yeah, looking forward to talking about this one and sharing some of the use cases that we've stumbled upon here. And again, just, if you're here to looking for some coding examples or some very advanced agents, this is not the episode for you. But if you're kind of the everyday user trying to take advantage of agents, this is going to be a fun one for you. So, ready to get started?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's get into our question of the week. And remember to leave a comment on this video with your own question or click the email address in the description to shoot us an email of what you'd like us to cover next week. So yeah, this week, our question is, what is the biggest tip or piece of advice that you would give to someone who just got a Copilot license through their work?
Ooh, good one. Yeah, I think for me, like being patient with your prompting and being willing to, experiment with your prompts. Like I think there's been some instances, like thinking back to my early stages, one of the first ways I was using it was with PowerPoint and sort of, experimenting with that. And sometimes I would give it what I thought was some simple guidance and it would either completely miss the point or give me some kind of an error notice. So I think, be patient. It's new technology. It's improving, it seems like every week, but, like be patient with the technology. Try, rewording your request or your prompt differently. Use those prompt tips when you're first starting. Um, yeah, I think that'd be kind of the main thing for me, I guess, is that the prompting really is key and that, you want to be detailed and specific as you give it instructions. So I don't know. What do you think? What are some of your, what would be your number one tip to give to new users?
Yeah, no, I think that's some good advice. I'd just say go out and experiment as much as you can. Enough PowerPoint, click on the Copilot button and just start trying things. And that's the only way you're going to really understand, what the limitations are, and what it can actually do. And like you said, the limitations are constantly getting pushed back every week. There's new features,
Yeah.
which is cool. But yeah, the only way you're going to really understand those, is by just experimenting, trying things out. And yeah, that's pretty fun too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And be, stick with it, like I think we not a problem that we've had, but like we've certainly heard from other companies that we work with that it's like, some groups will kind of they get it, they experiment with it, and then they just, they lose momentum and kind of go back into their old ways. So,
Yeah.
start experimenting and then keep experimenting, I think is key.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, well, good question of the week. You ready to get into our topic of the week for the agents?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, so Copilot agents. From, in my opinion, like from the perspective of the end user consumer of M365 Copilot, like those of us in non-technical roles, initially Copilot was really just the app integration, being able to do the content generation, summarization, some of the use cases that we've covered in earlier episodes and will continue to cover and focus on. But now, with Copilot chat and with some of the newest releases, agents have become accessible to those of us in these non-technical roles. And again, we're going to show you a few quick examples. So first, I'm going to demo one that will be a marketing Q&A type of agent, like some question and answer you can get based off of, a set of marketing materials that sits in a SharePoint site. The version that I'm going to do here is just simply done using natural language and chatting using the Copilot chat. And then Logan's going to have a similar demo. His will be a little bit more advanced, but to be clear, with a little bit of patience and practice, this is even accessible for the most non-technical folks. But this will be using kind of native Copilot Studio, a little bit more hands-on, but again, accessible for all of us. So yeah, we've set the floor, set the stage. Are we ready to do the first demo?
Yeah.
All right, so our first agent that we're going to build here is going to just be using natural language. And this is going to be just as if I'm talking to Logan and having Logan build this agent for me. So I'm interacting with Copilot here just in my Bing browser, Copilot. I can see here on the right that now I've got this option here for there's a get agents. There's some custom or pre-built ones that are ready to go out of the box. I'm going to go ahead and select this create agent. And this is the natural language. Again, it's just like I'm talking to somebody that's building it on my behalf. So I'm going to start out by saying that in this particular case, I want a Q&A agent to answer questions about a marketing plan. So in this case, I'm trying to build up a Q&A agent that's going to only use the sources of data being a folder that contains a marketing plan that we mocked up before this for the sake of this demo, just some fake marketing material that's in there. And again, natural language going to ask me questions and build as we go here. So now it says, this is often the first question it asks as a follow-up is, what do we want to name it? And it's going to come up with something basic. So it's got marketing plan advisor suggested name. We tend to like things to be a little bit more fun around here. So let's say I'd like to name it Jolly Roger, sticking with the pirate themes. And what you'll see here too is if you're noticing the screen is split. On the left side where I'm interacting now is the natural language coaching of building the agent and walking me through that process. On the right side here is actually like a Q&A or sorry, not a Q&A, but like a testing environment. So it's, kind of gives you a sneak preview of what the agent's looking like. All right, so now it's giving me the name update. I can see that up here as well in the testing environment. It's named Jolly Roger. Let's emphasize the structure. Let's refine the instructions further. What should be emphasized or avoided in Jolly Roger's response? Let's say I wanted to, I'm going to say the responses should be in the tone of a pirate. We'll try to make it more fun, have it give us some pirate-related responses. Curious to see what it comes up with for this.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so it says, yeah, now it will respond in the tone of a pirate. Now it's going to say, next, how do you want Jolly Roger to interact with users? For example, should it be friendly, humorous, or strictly informative? So I've already told it pirate. I'm going to say I want it to be a humorous pirate. I don't tend to relate with pirates being particularly funny, but we'll see what this comes up with, I guess. All right. Okay, so the next point we're going to do here is we're going to give it to the source. So I'm going to say I only want it to provide responses based on information from this source. And what I've given it here is I've given it just a URL to the SharePoint folder that contains this this mock material. Now this can be a little funky, and it goes back to what I'd mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you have to be patient with the prompting. It's a tool that's continuously getting better, but you may still run into issues. So it's giving me an issue now. It's saying that it can't access this folder, despite the fact it should be able to. So what we're going to do for here is I'm going to navigate. They've got the describe button up here, which is what it comes up with by default. There's also a configure here. So this is where you can see some of the stuff. This is like the very, very low code version of what it's being built for this agent. I can see the name which it populated based on my responses. It's got a description for it. It's got those instructions that I've given it down here. And then I've got this section here where you can see knowledge. Now, Logan's going to demo for you one that requires, more manual configuration. Again, that slightly more advanced version. But even in this really basic version, this might be something that you run into. And this is a really easy way to just feed it the sources that you want. You can see here that I can select folders and files. It's got a variety of files that it can take. I can also just add SharePoint sites, and it says that I can include up to 20 sources. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, and last point I should make here too, you can also add web content in here if you want to, but in this case, I only want information on this one folder. I don't want to cloud myself with other marketing plans that a regular, Copilot might be pulling from other SharePoints. I want it just specifically to this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and select this browse button here. And then I am going to navigate to the source folder of where this information is being stored. So bear with me just a moment in here. All right, now I've got it right here. So this is the folder that contains that mock material. So I'll go ahead and select that. Now it's added in here. I can see it says reference from SharePoint. It's got that folder in here. So this is great. We want to make sure it does accept it. Sometimes it can give you some error messages. So just make sure it's in there. And now my agent is ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and just go back to this describe tab. I can still test it here. Like I highly encourage you to do that. You might find things that you forgot to coach it on, or, types of responses you may not want to receive. And so this is a great opportunity to test it before you actually publish it. So now what I'm going to ask it is summarize our advertising plan. And we're just going to want to just make sure it's not going to pull from the web. It's not going to pull from other sources, just strictly from the mock material that we have in there. Just want to make sure that it's working. Okay, here's my, what did it say? Friendly or humorous pirate tone. Ahoy, Grant. Here be a summary of our advertising plan from the GTM plan. Okay, and then it's giving me this summary. Okay, and it's going to even show me, okay, this plan was offered by Logan and yourself. Love it. 15 minutes ago. It's got a link right to the file if I want to get more detailed, but looks like this is working for me. I'm going to go ahead and just, it's auto-saved. I'm going to go ahead and create my agent. Last point that I will bring up before I turn it over to Logan here is that where I had selected the build an agent, my agent is now going to just appear right up there for me. It'll say Jolly Roger, and now it's available for me to use. So you can also just go to the agent if you want to, kind of save that URL. I'll just dismiss in this case. And again, I can see that, Jolly Roger just popped up for me right up here. Icons are customizable as well. Just go to that configuration, or you can also, sometimes I've had it ask me to, choose an image for it. But this is a really basic agent. Took us 5 minutes to do it. And it's very useful. So that's our first demo. Let's turn it over to you for a more advanced walkthrough.
Sounds good. Okay, so now we're going to take a closer look at Copilot Studio. So this is the Copilot Studio environment, a little bit different than the just the Bing browser version of Copilot that the Grant was in. But we're just going to get started with create a new agent here. And today we're going to be creating an agent based off of an HR handbook. So employees could, ask questions about different policies and stuff rather than, going to HR, sending HR an email. If your HR department created an agent like this containing all of the different policies and information, employees could just ask this chatbot instead. So pretty useful use case. But yeah, so instead of doing this, natural language creation that Grant was showing earlier, we're just going to go straight to skip to configure right here. And we're going to give it a name. Let's call it HR chatbot. Description, employees and ask questions about policies.
So this is really kind of, it's like a form you're completing almost.
Yeah. So this is the basically so far it's essentially the exact same as the configure tab that was on your Bing version. So yeah, it's basically just a form that we're gonna enter in some information, and then once we get past this step, we can mess around with some of the cooler features.
Okay.
And so instructions, you can really add a whole lot of things here. This is basically, the things that Copilot was prompting Grant about, the tone, what should it be focusing on, stuff like that. Is basically what we're just going to fill in here. So let's say a casual tone. We can say something like, address the user by name when they ask a question. And I tested this out in Copilot in the Bing version, and it was working, but it wasn't working for me in Copilot Studio. So I'm curious if it'll work this time. I know this is like more of a testing environment, so it might not have full access to the name. So I'm not sure why it didn't work last time I did this, but let's give it a shot. Um, and yeah, let's just leave that there for now. And then here we have the knowledge base that we were talking about earlier. So I'm just gonna go in here, see if the link works this time.
Well, like you, I
Okay,
guess.
I guess so. All right, there we go. And we'll just go here and create.
Do you have to? I'm just curious. Like, do you have to when you were in the instructions part, you were using kind of like a dashed line as like a bullet point. Do you have to enter it in that format, or can you use like commas and something like
Yeah,
that instead?
that's a good question. So I'm not entirely sure. The only reason I've been doing that is because I noticed when I did the natural language version and then I looked at it inside Copilot Studio, it popped up as these dashes in the
Mm,
instructions. So it took, whatever my natural language was and split it up like this. So that's just kind of what I've been doing to kind of play nice with Copilot, sure by its rules, but yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, that's a good question.
okay.
Cool. So this is the main page here that we got. So we can see all the information we already entered in the knowledge base. But this is where the things start getting really interesting. So we have actions, we have triggers, and we have topics as some of the kind of the add-ins that we can, mess around with our bot with. But first, let's just make sure that this is
So
working. So hmm?
it looks like Studio gives you a lot more options here.
It does, it does. Yeah, there's quite a few things you can do here. It can get
Yeah,
pretty complicated, but it is all still relatively low code, no code, so it's definitely accessible to anybody.
gotcha.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Well, let's just make sure this is working. So, let's say, how often do we get a
I like that. It's got more options, a little bit more complexity, but it still has this test agent right there.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. This is very nice. So yeah, cool. Looks like we are connected to the right data from our little fake HR handbook. So let's move on here and let's take a look at actions. So these are things that basically tasks that Copilot that our agent can complete for you. So there's not a ton of pre-made actions right now. I'm sure there will be a lot more in the future, but we have some cool Excel ones here, like deleting rows, getting rows, etc. So you can think of a lot of different use cases for this. I guess for like an HR chatbot, for example, like if HR was having some sort of competition, right, and they were keeping track of points in some sort of Excel file, you could ask, how many points do I have, and it would pull up the row and it would give it to you. But the amount of things you can do just with these features here is pretty incredible, and like creating chatbots for yourself, right, too, to help you with your day to day tasks, with interacting with Excel, could be very useful. But if you want to get deeper into it, you can, create all sorts of actions, custom actions through Power Automate, different connectors. But that's a little bit more technical, so we're not going to get to that. But yeah, so lots of cool features here. Then we have triggers. So triggers are things that the agent will do, when something happens. It's how it reacts to some sort of input. And so we have to turn on generative orchestration to continue. Not entirely sure what that is, but I do know we need to turn it on to continue. So we're going to turn that on. Um,
I did see like earlier, there's something I didn't see in my demo, but in yours it did, like where there was a little thing that it said to turn that on. It looks like it was saying to use generative AI for responses. So
oh yeah.
I wonder if
Yeah.
like image creation, maybe, I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah. I have no idea. Um, but yeah, so we have triggers here. So featured 9 triggers, but we have a whole bunch of different ones. And these are really cool. So, our agent can do things, when X happens, and all these different things are X. So when, different Microsoft forms are filled in, or when files are created, when different emails arrive, when a new channel message is added. So like, for example, here in our HR chatbot, if HR has a channel and they post a some new update or some new announcement in
Okay.
the HR channel, right? We can basically say, so you can see.
I could see a good use case for this too with like a project team if you're using like a Q&A agent based on material that's in like a SharePoint for a project where, maybe your QA person goes in and posts a new report or something that this agent, automates something there. That would be kind of a cool use case, I think.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, 100%. And yeah, so we can see, yeah, we just got next here. We could add a name, but we're not actually going to go through it here. But I can select a team and the channel, and then I can basically tell Copilot what I want to do with it. So anytime there's a new channel post in this HR thing, it's going to use the content from that. So if HR makes an announcement that, loud keyboards are now no longer allowed in the office or whatever it is, this chatbot will now reference that and know that, even though it's not in the original document. And because, the handbook's probably not going to be updated every single time somebody makes a Teams post in HR. And also just like any general information and stuff. So it makes updating these agents a lot better. So yeah, that's just one example, but as we saw, there are a whole bunch of different triggers. I can just scroll through down so you can see a few more of them. Bunch of different teams and Outlook stuff, when files are created, planner, PI, yeah, all sorts of good stuff in here. And I'm sure there's just going to be more and more, added as time goes on. So, yeah, triggers are super cool. And the last thing we want to cover are topics. And these are kind of a way that you can manually get Copilot, your agent, to create the type of responses that you want. So what I mean by that is, let's just take a look. Let's say goodbye, for example. So it takes us into this kind of flow view. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So when we say goodbye, it asks, would you like to end the conversation? And if you say yes, then it'll end the conversation. But if you say no, it will keep on asking questions and keep on listening. And so this is a super basic example. All the there's a bunch of just default ones that automatically come in whenever you create a new one. But you can create these to do whatever you want. So you have like a lot of control over the specific language that these agents are using. So, for example, for an HR bot, if somebody's asking, how do I submit PTO or something, you could have, when it's triggered, the question, like somebody's asking about PTO is triggered, you could have the Copilot bot ask, well, which department are you in? And then depending on which department you're in, it'll have a specific answer, like go to this link or email this person, right? So obviously Copilot wouldn't know that, even if you just gave it a bunch of documents, but you can kind of manually craft the logical flow that you want the chatbot to interact with you. So yeah, it's a super cool feature. And yeah, lots of stuff you can do with this. You can get really specific. So yeah, that's kind of like the main features. I'm sure one episode we'll go through and actually create some of these. I think that would be a lot of fun. But yeah, and so the last thing that we should take a quick look at is analytics. So since this isn't published, this is just in a testing environment. It's there's nothing here, even though we have been using it technically. But this is a cool way, especially if you end up sharing this chatbot with lots of people and many people are using it. You can see, how often or are using it and their engagement, and not entirely sure what the satisfaction score is, but I'm sure it's some sort of metric that lets you, see how helpful it's being to people. So, yeah, lots of cool data in here to see if your chatbot's actually being helpful.
Very cool.
Yeah. But I think that's all for now for Copilot Studio. Yeah.
How do you so like you've got all this set up, let's say you're ready to go, how do you like make it go live or publish it?
Yeah. So we just go right here in the top and go publish, and
this will just show up like like I had in my Teams channel where I kind of could see my agent.
yeah, exactly. So it'll come up
Okay.
here in agents. I know it'll automatically get published to any channels it's connected to, which it shouldn't be any right now. So, but obviously I could share this with anybody who also has access to this document, takes a little while, but
Well, this was very cool, Logan. Thanks for walking us through it.
yeah, no problem. There we go.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, this is a fun episode. In today's journey of the Copilot Compass, we talked about agents becoming more accessible for those of us that don't have a coding background. We did two examples. So the first one, I walked you guys through an experience of using the agent builder, which is just natural language, simple back and forth with Copilot. It asks you questions and it sets you up that bot or the agent rather. I demoed it in Bing. You can certainly do the same experience in Teams. And then Logan took it one step further. Wouldn't say it's no code, more like a super, super light, low code type of solution that's in Copilot Studio. Again, yours was also a Q&A, but this time focusing more on an HR scenario, whereas mine was more marketing. So again, some really cool ways that we can use agents even for those of us without a technical background.
Yeah, no, I had a really good time doing those demos. Hopefully you guys did too. Yeah, so if you did, leave us a like, subscribe, and comment, and let us know what you'd like to see next. And remember that we have our Q&A sessions, so either click the link or just send us an email at copilot@ilink-systems.com. Remember that we have new episodes released every week on Tuesday, and stay tuned to get a sneak preview of what we have coming up next.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.